This is a show about facing fear, unlocking courage, and taking action.
Courage isn't necessarily a daunting thing.
It's going to give you more purpose. It's going to give you more drive.
It feels like making a courageous decision is going to get you closer to who you aspire to be.
It's knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage.
If people know you're being a faker or being inauthentic, you lose the room. They don't want to listen to you. And so who I am outside of the office is exactly who I am in the office. I lead with candor. I try to be mindful of when things aggravate me, how they might aggravate others, to try to diffuse that feeling.
Seven emojis. If you actually look up Ed Romaine's Instagram, okay, the way that you present yourself, you have 7 emojis. Let me list these off.
I don't even think I knew this, by the way.
Okay, this is what I'm here for. A sleuth observationalist. We're going to start right here. Here are the 7 emojis that you've chosen to use in the order from left to right. Runner, soccer ball, basketball. This is where it gets interesting. Basketball player, USA flag, English flag, hockey stick.
Yes.
All right, tell me now that you know these.
I'm going to take you through this.
Yeah,
actually,
please do.
now that you're reminding me of my emoji sequence, I can confidently say that it was all deliberate. So the runner is, I'm a runner.
Like marathons
in New York City. Yep. I ran my first full marathon at 35, my second one at 40 to see if I could beat my time at 35. And also because, we were coming out of the pandemic and I felt a little not like it was before the pandemic started. And I was kind of bad about training, and I did great for the first 20 miles. And then I sort of was in excruciating pain for the last 6, but I still beat my time by 30 seconds. Okay. So that's the first emoji. The soccer ball is because I played soccer my whole life. The basketball and basketball player point to our top tier league partnership with the NBA. The hockey stick, NHL is our newest tier 1 league partner. So that's there. The English and the American flag are representative of the teams that I sort of oversee. On the Bleacher Report side, we have a small but mighty team in the UK. So that is an homage to the English. Did I hit all of them?
You got them all. That was impressive.
All right. That's the design. Yeah.
Well, again, I love it. And a nice sneak peek behind the curtain too, of like some of it's personal, some of it's work, but obviously work can be personal, especially if you love what you do, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we work in marketing and entertainment, sports, right? Sports is the great community unifier. It's always been a part of sort of my life. And so bringing it into the fold, such as showing what's emblematic of your profession, I think it all kind of blends nicely there.
And I think it's a nice segue that it's November right now. And I would say it's a pretty awesome time in the world of sports. You've got, the NFL is hot and heavy. NHL is back. NBA is back. I'm sure you're pretty busy right now. But then you add on like this obscure World Cup that has been shifted to November, December. And although it sounds like that's more joy and love than work on the World Cup side.
Yeah.
Are you the type of guy that will actually wake up to watch a 2 a.m. or a 5 a.m. or are you going to DVR to? No,
my plan actually is on this Sunday. I believe there's a 2 p.m. that we're planning on attending. No, it would have to be waking hours for me to be not watching a highlight. I think though that it's interesting. Like October was like fresh. We had MLB postseason, the NBA launch, the NHL launch. All of our creatives sort of went out into the world. So it's funny because coming out of the summer, you're so eager to get the season started. So it has been kind of an exciting time in that regard, for sure.
So I should probably take a step back. We are joined today by Ed Romaine. I just kind of like went into it. So Ed, like when I look at Warner Brothers Discovery and try to figure out this portfolio, I think there's like 65 plus brands in the portfolio, Bleacher Report, TNT Sports, but then like HBO, CNN. Are you responsible for all 65 and therefore you don't sleep? Or like, are you under Warner Brothers Discovery Sports?
So I'm under Warner Brothers Discovery Sports, which essentially means I oversee the marketing and brand development efforts for everything that happens in the sports vertical. And that includes what happens in the sports vertical on our linear networks, TBS, TNT, True, soon HBO Max with USSF, which we'll be streaming some matches for. And then on the Bleacher Report side, well, I should say the digital and social side, we have MML, We have NBAD, a joint venture, and then we have Bleacher Report and its ecosystem of brands, which is a whole host of stuff that I'm happy to go through. But the two biggest brands that, from an awareness perspective, I would say are House of Highlights and Bleacher Report. House of Highlights, as an example, we're about to release today, is the most viewed brand on social across TikTok, IG, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We've garnered in the last, this is going to sound psycho, but in October, we garnered 961 million views on YouTube and 3.9 billion views on TikTok, IG, and YouTube combined. So just crazy resonance engagement numbers. So yeah, there's a lot going on just in sports alone. The other big piece of the job is figuring out how to create cohesion between the sports vertical, what we have going on with WB Theatrical, what we have going on with the streaming product, what we have going on with news. And we're working really hard, myself and my marketing counterparts, on creating synergies. So like from everything from NBA All-Star, which is like a tier 1 priority for the company, but so is Barbie the movie, so is Aquaman. How do we create interesting integrations across all the assets that we have? Like I did this House of the Dragon integration in MLB postseason where it was an awful announcing as one of the worst integrations they've ever seen. But in that regard, I was like, bad press is good press. This is great. We had a CGI dragon sort of fly in. Poor Bob Costas was like, I think the dragon from Westeros is here. This is like whole thing. But that part has been really fun because we have tremendous assets at the company, and so like making them sing in different ways that are sometimes intuitive to sports, sometimes not, has been awesome.
Who's actually like responsible for, I say, like walk like a crab, like you're responsible for walking left to right, side to side, making sure integration's happening? And like, is it like, oh shoot, we didn't think about this, or now it's like, all right, now that we've gone through this exercise, we need someone that's really integrating our brands across all the different verticals?
I have to say, one of the calls to action from leadership since the merger in April has really been an evolved sensibility about making sure all boats rise. I think like in the past in other companies that I've worked for, sometimes there's a fostering of this intra competition between like-minded assets, right? So imagine TBS competing with TNT. It's like, what are you doing? Or like in the way that we promote March Madness, how do we use Bleacher Report to do that? You have to think about it in ways that you're not actually diluting both digital products, but you're augmenting. So soon after the merger, they developed this council, which is called the Fusion Council. And it's about making sure there is cohesive accountability to make sure that like we are identifying not every piece of IP that we have, right? We're producing, if you think about our US network side, how many pieces of content do we produce per day? I mean, there's innumerable series, right? So it's really focusing in on a core set of, let's call it 6 to 12 things that we think are going to be the most prominent for the company from either a brand equity perspective or a revenue perspective, bringing a group of creatives together to come up with realistic thinking around integration, using our talent that we have, all of that stuff, and then managing the execution such that we can actually capture performance. More difficult on linear because you're time stamping and looking at GRPs, but on digital social, you can really sort of see engagement, virality, the things that you're creating that are working. So I think they've been really smart about kind of using data to inform our go forward strategy against each of those priorities, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And in the competitive reality of corporate,
yeah,
is that just fear? I mean, is it just like, I mean, obviously everybody wants to do well, but
we're all chasing our tails for sure, which I think is like part and parcel to media and advertising, right? It's like, oh, they're doing NFTs over here, let's go do an NFT, or we're gonna go make a metaverse environment, like let's do that. So it's a balance. I don't think it's fear so much as making sure we strike the right calculus of like paid media efforts off our O&O, but using the scale and size of our US networks, of our streaming platforms, of our sports properties to capitalize on audience, essentially. And this, I mean, getting people to pay attention to anything, including myself, from the time I wake up in the morning, is like this super difficult task because you're just inundated with stimuli.
Totally.
So it's that.
To me, like that's the question. That has always been the question, and the nuance that it takes to not invade someone's life, but actually make them want to interact with your magic, which is where I think sports for me has always been a love story. It's like, since I was 6 years old, my parents like chose not to finish The Basement right? Because that was my arena. Like
Really?
I was just down
You have
there.
TV down there?
No, like whatever season it was, I grew up in DC. So we actually
Mm-hmm.
had 4 of those things called seasons. I was down there. And if it was hockey season, I was on roller skates and I literally broke the same window like 11 times
That's
before I
hysterical.
finally smartly like covered it up with a board.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, I always also had this personal fear, not that it stopped me, but I'm curious to get your take, that I never wanted to muck up my love of sports. And I felt like going deep and working in sports and really going behind the curtain of this thing that was so pure could do that. So now you've been in sports how long?
5 years, about ancillary 7, but 5.
Okay, so first of all, I'd love to like figure out like how did you like let's talk about the steps. But like, do you feel now that you're there, can you like compartmentalize your love of sports and your emojis?
You
Or
know what's so interesting? Like, so I've worked in music, I've worked in more traditional agency, like sort of your background. I've worked in fashion. I've worked in, let's call it, sort of high-end luxury brand. I'll call it luxury, now sports. In any category of business that you work in, right? There's always this sort of test from the people around you being like, well, I love music more than you do. And it's like, let's name every catalog of every artist. And like when you're in a conference room, you have to like bop your head the hardest, So now on the flip side, people looking in on all these jobs are like, it feels glamorous. It feels like you have access to all this talent, like that people, are icons like Shaquille O'Neal and Candace and all these people. So being inside of it is amazing because it's enlightening. You learn things, you learn the humanity of sort of folks that you've looked up to your whole life. And there's something really grounding in that. But I also think I'm like a big culture guy too. So like it hasn't ruined my love for sports. In fact, I would say because I started at Bleacher Report before I took over the linear side of the house, I really got a chance to see how sports and culture were coming together because that was sort of the brand positioning for Bleacher Report, right? That intersection. And in that regard, it was interesting to me to see how. So I grew up in a super bifurcated home. My dad was from Boston, my mom was from Philadelphia, right? 2 angry fans, angry markets, so just angry people. One of my earliest memories, which I always talk about, is like I went to a Devils Flyers game. And I remember people chanting from Philadelphia, of course, that the Devils sucked and like spilling beer on my mother. I was probably like 6, right? And it was just always a part of my life. Like
when I grow up, I want to work in sports.
Yeah, well, I just like it was just like quarreling like factions of family about different teams and stuff. And so anyway, I say all this to say how I grew up and maybe how you grew up. It was like my uncle and my dad's and even my aunts were like super, super into sports. And that was a thing. I think it's interesting now because casuals, what I call casual fans or new fans, sometimes don't have that same constants that we always had as kids. And they're coming into sport in different ways by following players on social who have enthusiasm or passion for other things that then get them into it. And that's fascinating for me as a marketer because it's like, oh, you like sneakers. So, oh, you follow so-and-so. So, oh, I'm going to get you into this thing. And part of our approach really is always protecting the core. So like guys like you and me or folks that have grown up with sports and care about it and are going to tune in. And then getting the attention of these folks over here who are like, nah, I don't really watch TV and I'm always on social and I'm probably most of the time on TikTok. It's like, how do you get those people in? And some of it is like capitalizing on players, which to me is the funnel shifted to be player first. It used to be sort of person. And then on top of that, like, how do you create episodic narrative? So there's a reason for tune in, right? Whether it's a showdown or a topical that's like really relevant to the seasonal storyline. That's the fun part.
Well, and by the way, I'm not sure where this is going, this next comment. So
we can go anywhere.
All right, but I will say I find it fascinating how, we use specific words in certain places when other words could be utilized as well. So like you talked about Bleacher and like culture and to me, culture is just team. Like we grew up like in team sports. I grew up in team sports. I was
me too.
Soccer, basketball. I was not the swimmer. was not a
Orange
golfer.
slices. Yep.
You know, or exactly halftime orange slices. And it's like, okay, well, if you just treat it like a team, is this a highly functioning team? Are we playing like a team? Who's our coach of this team? And then I loved, like you said, people are now coming in from the player first, and highlights look different. Highlights to me is just a TikTok 30 is a highlight of a sneaker junkie called LeBron. And then, I also happen to learn he's really fucking good. Excuse me. He's really good at basketball.
Yeah.
And now I'm a sports fan because of it.
And by the way, like even thinking about what we call treated highlights, right? Like, so if James Harden steals the ball and we then suddenly create snowfall on top of him and say like winter is coming or something, we put out this asset that then creates a moment that lasts so much longer than the game. And that's really the kind of key to, like, people are talking about it 3 days later. And they might be talking about the animation or the overlay, but it's still a conversation catalyst.
Plus, sadly, when was the last time you talked about a sports highlight 3 days later?
100%.
Although maybe this Jefferson catch that just happened. I'm not dating myself.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that you said that's interesting to me about like sort of coach and cohesion and what the one team thing is, you have to remember just contextually, Bleacher Report used to operate independently for the most part of what was Turner Sports, right? And the linear sort of business. And on the advertising side, when I started years ago, I always thought, well, if I'm like Gatorade, how do I understand how to invest across a set of platforms? Might be creating different messages, but how do I connect a story across all these things? Like why isn't this turnkey or easy for me to just understand that I need to be a part of sports at Warner Discovery, at the time Warner Media? And that has been the greatest piece of creative work because we've created so much platform agnostic stuff that just runs across our ecosystem. And it makes it much easier for our brand partners to come play with us because they get a more comprehensive menu of stuff, you know?
And when they're in it, like this is where I wish I could go behind the curtain, and this is where I'm sure legal's like, cut this part out. But like when I sit down with you now as Gatorade, are you like, hey, here's what we can promise. You're getting sports. However, twice a year, you might also find yourself playing with HBO, or you might be in a movie.
Yeah.
Is it all the above now?
So it's interesting. So I think what sets us apart, first of all, are all of our tier one league partnerships. And, you know, we've sort of been this like quiet behemoth in the background, right? Like we have NCAA, NHL, MLB, NBA, like USSF now. It's a lot of stuff. I think brands are excited about that. I think brands are also excited that they can activate not just on TV, which is sort of tried and true, like it's a proven outcome, whatever it is. We have all of these digital products and now streaming products. And what I found on the brand side is they're super excited about the prospect of data, just more holistically across WBDs as an organization. Like, how do they get smarter about reaching folks? And then what's been exciting, I think, for our league partners is like, hey, we've noticed as an example, like more women are tuning into the NBA and the NHL, right? We happen to now have a whole host of US networks that largely skew female. If you think about HGTV and things like that, how do we work with our marketing counterparts to get creative, turning the Food Network logo into a basketball, things like that, to get people that might not be tuning into sports excited about it? And again, it goes back to this thing that I was telling you, like the soap operatic thing. Like, how do you get them excited for tune in through a voice that they're used to, whether it's like Guy Fieri or whomever it might be on the legacy talent side?
And there's so many places now where you could try to start strategically nudging people into like, the fascinating thing to me is like a platform is now a brand living on another platform to let the world know you exist, to bring you back to another platform.
Yeah, it's interesting. We think about it as, so we have, like you said, there's a lot of brands. Even in the sports ecosystem, we have a lot of brands. Like we consider NBA on TNT its own brand, right? Because that's what people know and tune into. Similarly to now, we have Gretzky with NHL on TNT. But HBO Max, Disco Plus, those are their own brands. We view those, at least as a marketer, we view those as our distribution platform. So in many ways, like Bleacher Report even is a distribution ecosystem for sports content. And the reason I'm like talking about this so explicitly is because we just went through all this like brand hierarchical work, which has been really helpful. Because it's like, what do we want consumers to see, right? Like WBD Sports, probably not. Like that's a marketplace thing for our clients. And I think that's an easy evolution to explain, like Warner Media to WBD Sports. But we do want people to know what Bleacher Report is, because that's what our youngest segments, our 25-year-olds are following. And if we're going to port that up through HBO Max, as an example, a Bleacher Report production, we want that to hit a consumer who knows Bleacher Report because they have the app or because they visit the website or whatever it is. So it is a tricky dance for sure, because you also have to remember now with USSF, we're going to be on TNT and TBS and potentially HBO Max. So how do you sort of not confuse someone who didn't know we had soccer in the first place, wants to watch it, and then they're like, well, how do I get to it? And if I'm creating a commercial for you to tune into that, you have to just be mindful of not confusing. The good part about like you, who I know is a diehard sports fan, you're going to find wherever the content is. So like the discovery part is not such a challenge, but it is a challenge for incremental audience and for younger people who aren't as familiar with that kind of stuff.
Well, to your point, is it a commercial really, or is it an influencer or someone who has influence on a TikTok?
Yeah.
There's a million ways to now get the word out. I'm going to find it, no doubt, as a sports guy.
Part of the strategy, funnily enough, on the influencer thing is that within the app product, the future forward product state is that there are creator streams that exist in the product, so that, you know, in real time, even if you're not tuned into the game, you could be in an Eagles room, as an example, what we call a community room. And there could be
those poor people.
You know, my mom's from Fishtown, so let's not disparage.
Look, I have to say I'm a Commanders fan, so it's I think we know who the joke's on.
But you know, anyway, it's interesting because you don't have to be tuned in that instance, but we're garnering all this attention for what a creator might be talking about during a game, kind of thing.
So we always talk about the relationship between fear and courage. Like, you actually can't get to the courageous choice without first channeling it through fear. And you know, a lot of people probably not listening to the show, but a lot of people we work with, they want to bury fear, they want to suppress it versus address it. When I think about your core, your 25-year-old like super fan, that this is just joy. The platforms are joy. Like Bleacher is just joy.
Yeah.
There's highlights, there's co-creation opportunities, there's swagger, there's style, there's creativity.
I'm glad you get that from it. Thank you for saying that.
Well, yeah. Take this to your bosses, you know?
Yeah.
take the soundbite up.
That's on purpose, yeah.
But I wonder, you know, the spirit of fear and like proactively hunting down a fear and then go, this is going to be a problem 3 years down the line, 10 years down the line. Is the highlight actually hurting sports in the grand scheme of things? Meaning that 25-year-old, 24-year-old doesn't actually watch a game anymore. They're a casual fan. It's transactional. They watch 72 seconds of the whole weekend at 72 seconds, and then they're done with it.
Yeah, and they feel like they got what they would have gotten had they tuned into the whole thing and saved all that time. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think, you know, you could probably say the same thing for a lot of social media and how it abbreviates, you know, conversations like we're having, right? It makes it much more two-dimensional because it's either like this or that. We're in this sort of pitchfork culture. I know I'm going a little further, but yeah, with the highlight, I think it can be damaging. I think part of the whole thing with the treated highlight or doing highlights maybe faster or differently, having commenter overlay, it's about, we try to do it in real time. So like, I'll use an example. So BR Football, which is our English brand, it's a very popular soccer handle on Instagram. Okay. Don't quote me on the number of followers, but I'll look it up while we're talking. But I say all this to say, when there's a match, when we had rights to UEFA and there would be a match, there's a control room in the center of the office where 20 programmers would sit there and pre-predict things that might happen between player interactions so that the moment that it happened, they could deploy it across social and drive people back to the match. So I think, yes, at its base, a highlight can be damaging, but I think if you can use it as a way to be predictive / create excitement about what's happening in terms of like a FOMO moment, I think it can actually be quite useful.
It's like a real-time highlight, though, with the game still going on to drive people back. It's very different,
it's
though.
Like you just said, fuck on Ryan's podcast, like tune in, and like that goes out on social, right? And so like it's not that, but you get what I mean.
You don't see my control room? My guys are on it already. This thing is
exactly. They're tweeting.
We're trending on Elon's network. You know.
Oh man, that's a mess. But yes, Yeah, so I would say it can be both. It can be both. We try to use it not as a detriment, though.
So your background, again, it's pretty cool to hear that you've, I'm air quoting, you're only been in sports for 5 years now, because
Yeah.
you brought a lot to the table from fashion and style and luxury. It almost makes sense that you now get to play with other brands outside of sports, right? It's almost like the perfect opportunity for you. Do you see it that way?
Well, it's funny. I, truth be told, was hired at Bleacher Report because I was a casual fan, because their primary interest in growth, again, was to be more universally appealing to never fans or casual fans. And the app was started in San Francisco, as you know, let's call it 12 or 14 years ago, by four dudes in a basement who wanted to talk to other sports fans, right? And
Do they ever think of that as the name, Four Dudes in a Basement? Because that's pretty good.
that would have been a pretty good name. But I think at the time, one of the founders, Dave Finocchio, his thinking, which I appreciated, was like, look, if I get a bunch of Ryan Bermans in the room who are all speaking the same language, I'm never going to have this contrasting point of view, because Bleacher Report was meant to be emblematic of all these other passion points of life. And that was sort of my background. It made sense at the time. I think over time, hopefully, I proved that I'm an effective marketer, which allowed me to have a broader purview eventually. But yeah, I think one of the biggest differentiators for Bleacher Report was always that it looked premium without being top down. It needed to be peer to peer. It needed to feel polished, but also user generated. And we needed to bring in all these other avenues for folks to pay attention. Like, as an example, we started a commerce business having no idea. Like, if you're coming to look at Bleacher Report for box scores and highlights, why am I thinking you're going to buy a t-shirt that says LeBron over the Hollywood sign? When he was traded to the Lakers, we had no idea if it was going to work. And eventually we realized there was resonance. We were capitalizing on seasonal narratives. The league got interested. We created a relationship with the PA. And now we have this amazing fledgling business that's great and sort of relevant. We work with top tier talent. We get musicians to remix NBA jerseys from their hometowns. Like, that is awesome, because to me, if I'm a young kid in Miami who maybe didn't follow Dwayne Wade, but I see this amazing collection of like what we call World Tour, which is an homage to his retirement at the time a few years ago, suddenly like you're creating a cultural moment that goes beyond the sport, which I think is fascinating.
Are you guys still working with D Wade, or is it other athletes, or?
Yeah, I mean, so in the World Tour vertical that I'm talking about, we've done Pedro Martinez. We try to use World Tour as a final celebration for someone's career. And if you remember those concert T-shirts with the city dates on the back, which still exist, obviously,
Yeah.
if you go to concerts, we do it with like amazing moments from the career. So like an amazing victory, or like most points scored on this day, most 3-pointers, whatever it is, and it just creates like a little chronology celebration to the individual and gives people something to like, have that aspiration or admiration on their backs.
I mean, the higher up in the organization you go, does that, now let me just get to the actual question. I was gonna say, the further from the actual work you get. Okay.
I know exactly what you're gonna say.
Okay.
Do I lose the creativity as I go higher?
Do you feel that?
Yes, 100%.
So what do you do to like make sure you don't, or do you just have to surrender that?
Well, it's a great question. A lot of my day-to-day is management. It's conversation. It's therapy. It's conversation.
Totally.
It's keeping people, particularly in times of change, engaged. Morale is tough in times of change. Being hybrid is tough, really tough for young people who feel isolated and don't have networks like you or I have because they haven't been in the game as long. I try to surround myself with positive thinkers. So most of the people that I lean into and trust are people that have been with me before, and people that I know lead with positivity / are the best creatives. And I feel like even if I'm not on the ground with them necessarily, I couldn't possibly see every asset that was created. It wouldn't be possible.
Yeah.
I know that like they represent the best because we're a reflection of each other, sort of thing. But I do have to say, like, when you're managing pieces of business, it's harder to feel as fulfilled creatively, for sure.
you're talking about change can be scary and change is hard, and change has been hard during this whole whatever this last 3 years, 30 years. I don't know how long it's been. This pandemic's been, and optimism is my number one personal value. So I'm always looking at the world trying to like, oh, they say this, but maybe this is the positive way to say that particular thing. And one of the things I'm playing around with, I've got this weekly dose of courage that goes out every Thursday, and it's coming up before the end of the year. It's funny that when someone tells you something has to change, because if I'm on the team, you're like, this is changing. You're like, oh no shit. Like
you're like, I don't want it to. So
that's when it's scary. That's when it's like, I'm scared and I'm nervous and my sweaty palms and all. But when we say something's new, which is the same thing as saying change, by the way. Hey, we have a new project.
Or a new way of being, a new structure, a new way.
Right. I want you to help me figure out this new partnership. Now it's exciting. Now it's like, oh, I'm going to roll up my sleeve. There's no sweaty palms. This is giving me permission to be curious and play. Change, scary, new, exciting. So like, I think it's like a mindset shift. Like, hey, this gives us the opportunity to create something new. We have got permission from the top to stay curious and figure out a way to like work a flying dragon into this sports arena. Let's figure it out.
Yeah. Well, what I found to work well with team members is, I think, so I talked a little bit about moving away from creativity because you're managing people, et cetera. When people feel like they have visibility into your thinking, or people feel like they have visibility into what might be happening organizationally, and that means having sit-down conversations with a lot of different folks at a lot of different levels, so they can express their anxieties or express that, fluctuations in the market are making them nervous. The truth is, one, humans divert to fear, no matter what. If you said to me, Ed, I'm going to cut your hair, but suddenly I'm like, what do you mean you're going to cut my hair? Like anything that you say about my day, or I'm going to feed you this burger, I'm like, where did that burger come from? There's just like this immediate anxiety that's almost human. And I try really hard to cut that off at the pass. One, by being really careful about semantics, because to your point, it's just words are triggering, right? And they either trigger joy or they trigger anxiety or sadness. And so like, it's a little bit of that. And I have to say, my version of being courageous is being as transparent as I can within the confines of being a corporate representative. I tell people the truth, because if people know you're being a faker or being inauthentic, you lose the room. They don't want to listen to you. They don't feel like what you're saying is necessarily what you actually think. And so like, for me, who I am outside of the office is exactly who I am in the office. I try to be I lead with candor. I try to be mindful of when things aggravate me, how they might aggravate others, to try to diffuse that feeling. Does it always work? Sometimes. The other thing that I started, and I actually can't take credit for it because other leaders that I was listening to were doing similar things, was I was mandating time away from the computer. And I was also bringing in outside voices to talk about things like anxiety, things like productivity, things like creativity, and how to like, one, keep anxiety at bay and foster the productivity and creativity on the other side. I think I've gotten feedback that those have been super useful for folks.
I wish more leaders understood that. Like, when you gift knowledge to somebody else, because that's really what it is.
Totally.
When you're like, let me bring in these 7 people, have outside perspectives, let's just have a conversation with them, and you give them the floor and you just sort of share some of that power, which is what it is.
Yeah. You also push people's faces away from the paper, meaning like, you're so here and you're thinking about your deadline, you're thinking about the games from the night before. You got to pull out, see somebody from a different vertical of business, a different world path, different viewpoint, and just get perspective. Because one of the things about sports that used to aggravate me in the beginning was, in its cyclicalness, I felt like it was so ripe for disruption, because it was just the same. You knew when the season was going to start. I mean, this is all pre-pandemic, but you knew when the season was going to start and end, and you knew when the Super Bowl was going to be. And, trying to think out, never knowing that sports would be paused in the beginning of the pandemic, but trying to think outside of that was like, that was a challenge at first.
Funny, I see it as finally the one calm is there's triggers on the calendar that you can rely on and build towards. Although you could be agile once you're in it, as the stories bubble to the surface, right? Like, NFL example, Justin Fields 5 weeks ago. No one wants to talk about Chicago. Today, everyone wants to see what Chicago's going to do this week and next year.
That's
all right.
Exactly.
I'd love to end with like a little rapid fire, five rapid fire questions. And
see, when you said rapid fire, I got anxious now because now it's quick. I got to be on my feet here.
Yeah,
no.
we're putting a timer on you. No.
Oh, you might. Okay.
No. There's no timer on this, but like 5 rapid fire questions. You permission granted to not freak yourself out, but to answer truthfully in where you land. Question number 1. If you could transport yourself back into the portfolio as just a creator, what brand do you pick and why?
I would pick HBO Max.
And why?
And why? Because it's been captivating me since I was a teenager. Whether it's comedy, the sports docuseries that they have, the premiumness of I'm watching White Lotus in the Vow season 2 right now. It's like if there's a platform that I care about or will keep me engaged the most, it's that. That would be another dream outside of the dream I'm in.
Berman family is a huge White Lotus family. Well, at least my wife and I are huge fans.
I don't want to interrupt your rapid fire, but it's very good this season.
Yeah, don't jinx it because I'm not sure. We're not binging. We're not binging over here. All right, who wins the World Cup?
God, I'm going to go Argentina.
I hope you're right. Is this more like you hope they win or you think?
I like Argentina. I always follow Argentina. My husband and I we follow Argentina.
I actually, when I was 16 years old, got to go down there and play. Yes. Now, I wasn't playing professionally. It was an exchange student thing. But I was like, yes, please underestimate me as an American.
That is so cool. We actually have a few folks flying to Qatar, which I wouldn't, but yeah, I'm excited to watch for sure.
Yeah.
What about you? Who's your team?
I mean, I'm kind of, I hope, obviously rooting for the USA. Who is it? But like, I hope Argentina wins. I have a hard time thinking Brazil won't win.
Why do you hope Argentina wins?
I mean, I want Messi to win, and I love Argentina. I've been there. I think they're set up fairly well. I
feel like Messi's a good guy.
Yeah, who knows? But I agree with you. You know.
Yeah.
And I also think that people they're taking for granted it's still going to be really hot there. So like South America teams like Brazil and Argentina should have an advantage. I mean,
that's what I think.
Some of their players are in Europe, obviously, but like if you're part of the homeland, like you're used to this weather.
I want to look up the temperature while we're doing this. Okay, keep going.
It's hot. It's hot. It's 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
All right.
81 today. Peaking at 87. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
You get to host a private dinner. Money's not an object, by the way. 3 people, alive or dead. Who's at the dinner? And
in
where
sports
is it?
Or
this is your dinner.
3 people alive or dead. This is a tough one.
We'll go alive. We'll give you some guardrails.
We're going alive. All right. I'm gonna throw in. And now I don't have to like these people, right?
Yeah, you don't have to like them. I like where you're going.
All right, I'm going. I gotta talk to Oprah. She's got to be there. I'm gonna throw one of the Bushes in there. I need to talk to George Bush for a second while he's painting. I need to understand something.
That's pretty rude that he's painting during the dinner, though. Come on.
Yeah, and I need like a sick. And I want Spielberg there. How's that?
And where's everybody sitting? When like
I'll be at the head. This is like a sort of semicircular table. There's like they're sort of around me, right? So I can like rapid fire them.
Yep.
Where are we eating? I want to be in Malibu somewhere, maybe not Nobu because it's, we need something better than that. But I want to be looking at the water. It's got to have a calming effect so everybody feels open and fluid. That's right.
All right. Your answer may be Malibu, but just because I said this, I don't think it's going to be now.
Okay.
It's your anniversary. Money's no object. What city are you going to?
So I'm a big traveler. On my bucket list is Australia, New Zealand. So I would probably say there because I haven't been yet. One of my favorite cities that I have been to, I would say, is Copenhagen in the summer only.
Okay. Last question. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
If there's one thing you could change about your childhood, what would it be?
I think I wish that I had been more self-assured as a kid, like I am as an adult, because I think that I actually would have pursued things more fiercely on the creative side had I not been figuring out
who I was.
Yeah, I mean, we're all still figuring it out, right, every day. But I just mean, I think I was far less self-assured as a kid.
I would say that I would like to have been a fly in the wall because like courageous is like the only word I could think about. Like going through that journey, especially with a Flyer fan and a Boston fan as
Yeah.
parents, it must have been pretty interesting.
Can I ask you a question? When
Yeah.
you started Courageous, what did that word mean to you at the onset? Like, how did you land on that word?
So again, this is 5 years now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do my best to go back to it. But what we thought it meant at the time, and at the time it was more about like courageous ideas. Like we're almost full circle on we're living in this media obese time, and it's hard to break through. So at the time, the idea was every single time we work on a courageous idea,
Mm-hmm.
my team's happier, they stay later, and the return on courage was greater. And every single time we worked on a safe idea, my office was empty at 4:59 p.m. I had a closed door meeting with someone every other week, how unhappy they were, and the return was meager, and shame on us for presenting the safe idea. So back then, the idea was this is our positioning line. It's courageous ideas are the only ones that matter. That then turned into if I'm going to do this from San Diego, which I didn't want to leave, we can't be even with LA and New York. We have to be better if we're going to
Mm-hmm.
win a CEO conversation. Like, who are these guys and where are they from?
Mm-hmm.
So the idea was I was going to go write a book about all the courageous people that are making courageous ideas. The joke was on me. I meet all these amazing sages along the way. I'm sitting with Eric Ryan, founder of Method, Scott Harrison, Charity Water, people at Amazon, Google, founding astronaut of Virgin Galactic, Loretta Hidalgo. And I'm going
That's
on
cool.
this journey and I'm like, oh, shoot, I'm writing the book because I need the book first. And realized, one, it's really, really lonely to be the leader. It's really, really lonely to be any leader, courageous leader, cowardly leader.
I'm so happy you said that because it's so true.
So to me, then it's the idea has morphed a lot since then. I wasn't sure if I was launching courageous as I want to do courageous ideas, which is I think where we launched. And then when I got to go start keynoting about it, it turned into, oh wow, there's this. The world needs more courage. It's not just courageous ideas.
That's right.
Right? Everything you do, courageous reinvention is hard to do. Change is hard to do, and you start to sort of following the opportunities from there. So
Even humility is hard to do, I would say. Everything requires some degree of courage, I would say.
mirrors. I believe in the mirrors concept. So if I'm vulnerable, it makes it easier for someone else to be vulnerable. If I can be honest in hard situations,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you that I use the name as a crutch because I'm like, hey, we're called courageous. I can't not say this.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Right. We're called
Well,
courageous.
it gives you like sort of carte blanche to say those things that you need to.
And they need to be said. And so to your point, this is like I think we're close to 90 episodes of the podcast. And I've heard this theme like every 4 or 5 episodes, someone will say exactly what you said. It's like just telling the truth is now an act of courage. And that is almost really sad to think about. That just being honest is an act of courage now.
Yeah. I mean, it's very different than when New York City parents like send their kids to school with an apple and they're like, you're so brave. I think it's, that to me is like, how are we using this term to ascribe the situation? But anyway, I think you're right. I also think talking about difficult things with like one of the biggest things that I think has changed for the better actually since the pandemic is that in order to be an effective manager, you have to show vulnerability, which I think was not a thing in the past.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it was looked at as a flaw in you as a leader if you were kind of being emotional about something or talking about something outside the walls. And the boundaries of like office, outside office, it's not just that people are working hybrid and that's what it is. It's also how you talk about the world that we're in has changed so much at the office that you have to adapt because you have to stay relatable to the people that you're working with.
Okay, but let's say you are an asshole. Okay, let's say you're on the other side of this.
It can be, by the way, but yeah.
Right. Let's say like you haven't figured that part out yet. And
yeah,
then what I would say is being courageous helps you pick up time. Like if you and I have a direct conversation versus you thinking about something and it's just spinning in your brain for weeks. Why doesn't this boss like me? Or what's really going on here? And now your work is it's diminishing. The productivity is going down. So I always start with, hey, being courageous and giving yourself permission to have that hard conversation, honest conversation,
Yeah.
will trigger opportunity for more time. And then again, I hope you're not a jerk about it, right? But like, it's then if you add that with being vulnerable, being honest, and having empathy, it does free you up. And that's what we're trying to do, is like liberate people or businesses so they can deal with change, they can deal with new, they can come up with what tomorrow looks like. And then that's how you also build a great team, because we're all in this together, and let's move together.
Yeah. I also think there's a connective thread between courage and confidence too. Like, to work in a company the size of Warner Brothers Discovery, you almost have to have confidence, right? Because you're not in every conversation. You're not always privy to what's going on. You're not always privy actually to the mechanics of how decisioning is done at the highest level. And so you have to have, if you're insecure in your own ability or your own effectiveness, I think that can be a detractor. And I also think if you're not confident when you're talking to your teams, it goes back to this idea, you could be telling the truth, but if you're shakily telling the truth, / you're like, I don't know what's going on either, I don't think that necessarily results in a positive outcome either. So part of the courage piece for me is speaking confidently around difficult things too.
I would also say, just to add on to that, and I don't mean to be a one-upper here, but like,
No, I love it.
I think listening confidently is even more important.
For sure.
Because like, if I'm on a fact-finding mission and I'm just trying to like create enough space for you to tell me the truth, is another version of confidence versus me being on display presenting to 4 or 5 people on my team. It's like, am I actually creating that space where it's like, hey, we're just trying to get to maybe everyone has a different version of truth on this particular moment. Let's figure out what's the right truth to move forward.
Yeah.
That now you're a detective in some ways, looking for answers. But man, I commend you for what you've done. I mean, I love,
appreciate it.
Keep at it. I should have asked one more. I'm gonna ask one more question.
Okay.
Because there's so much that you're responsible for, and I'm not going on the overwhelming side. That's a whole nother podcast.
If you have to be careful with figuring words here. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Is there if there was like a pie chart of your time at work right now, percentage wise, what gets what?
It's a good question. Well, we're in season for NBA and NHL, so they're getting a lot of my time right now. I would say how we're cross promoting across the company is getting a lot of my time right now. And I think people management probably gets 60% of that. I spend a lot of my time talking to folks during the day.
That's not a terrible thing.
Sure. That's the truth. It's definitely not a terrible thing, but it requires what is the word I'm looking for? It's not performative, but it's almost like you have to be on, right, all day, which requires energy and a certain amount of poise, because you're listening to people. Let me tell you, people aren't, when you're meeting with people, they're not coming to you saying, I'm so happy. I'm just so thrilled about what's going on here. And so you have to be prepared to hear that all day, and then also have the like sort of ability to maintain calm and positivity like we were talking about before. Well,
stay courageous, man. Stay the therapist that you are.
I love talking to you today.
As your OG said, keep running, keep dribbling the ball, or supporting those that do. And let's stay in touch, man. Thanks, Ed.
Awesome. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Podcast. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so more people can find us. See you again next week.